of children now on their way home after their first day of school, the inland provinces, of course, back. Many people hoping that this will be an easier year. The problems in our education system have existed long before COVID. They've made themselves shown during the pandemic. Professor Michael Cordier is the head of the Department of Curriculum Studies at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor, good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. I think many of us are hoping that our education system gets back to normal, that the pandemic ends. What are you hoping will happen this year in our education system?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to your listeners. Yes, it's a new year, but it's a new year very much with all the old problems back, isn't it? I was listening to the minister yesterday, and it seems as if they haven't come to grips with some of the challenges that we have been experiencing for the last 2 years. You are quite correct. We are all hoping that the education system must get back to normal, and I think it's about time for us now to return back to school. It is just that it seems as if the education department is not keen to get us all back in school. There are still a few issues that will stand in the way of learners going back to school, albeit that primary school learners will return, all of them. High school learners will still rotate.
Do you think we need to end the rotational system? I realize that's also a scientific question in a way.
Yeah, COVID is still with us, but so are some of the solutions. And I think it is now time for us to prioritize the vaccination of everybody concerned in education. It is a good sign that 80% of the teachers have been vaccinated. But what about the other 20%? Unless we get everybody, all the teachers vaccinated, the system will not get back to where it is supposed to be. And I'm also thinking that we must, and I'm hoping that, parents will also vaccinate their children, because all of this will add up to the fact that, the more people are vaccinated, less the problem will be for the virus to mutate.
We talk about the education system getting back to normal, but normal isn't really good enough, is it? I mean, if you look at the scale of the problems that we had before COVID-19, we actually need something a lot better than what normal used to be.
Yeah, and we need to define what that normal is, or what the new normal will be, because things will never be the same. Our learners are experiencing a backlog, especially those in the foundation phase who are supposed to learn how to read and how to write at the primary level, which has not been the case. They have just not been in school long enough to acquire those skills. And those are skills that can only be acquired if learners go to school on a regular basis, which is why we are almost devastated given the fact that some of the learners are still not back at school.
Within all of this, we probably need more resources. I mean, already education, I think, is the biggest or the second biggest element of our budget. We spend a huge amount of money on it every year. And yet the education department has to do so many things. Many education departments around the world just teach. Our education department also has to feed learners. I mean, that's where a lot of the money goes. Do we need to sort of have a rethink? I mean, there'll be a temptation. There's always a temptation to change the syllabus. Where would you start with a change?
Yeah, let me first and foremost say that the education department, I don't think they can put more money to the problem. As you know, education is the biggest share, or gets the biggest share of our budget. So South Africa is putting as much money into education as they possibly can under these circumstances of COVID-19. They can't do more. So it's time for us as the public, we as a collective, we will now have to realize it takes a whole village to educate this child, and we must all come to the party. Civic organizations, churches, parents, individuals, businesses, we now need to stand together and to come together as a collective to take education forward, because the government alone cannot do it all on its own, and we can't just leave the education, this mammoth task of education, to teachers alone. They need our support.
Professor Michael Lecordier, I really appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed at the University of Stellenbosch.